Hello class, how are you? Welcome to the HTML lesson today. So today we're going to talk about classes. The basic definition of a class is basically saying that classes are used to give the same style to a number of HTML elements. But the bigger question is, what is a class? I want you to think of a class as a house, which house a lot of different things in them. For example, in a house, you can find a bathroom, you can find a bedroom. All those become the elements that are actually housed in one of the class. So that's what a class is. So in an HTML, classes actually help us to make our life uh, a little bit easier. For example, if you look at the code that is available on the screen right now, H1 basically means, on our first heading, we write that this is red, right? And then then the paragraph that follows after the heading, so write this is red. And then we are writing this in HTML, right? And then we use our CSS for more like styling. So that's when we give the context, if you want to change the font color, if you want to change the padding space, which basically meaning like, the space around the website, basically designing on how you want your website to be. So the fact that you declare, for example, your H1 or P1 with the class inside, it means it's going to be easier for you to change and design the elements within that element, right? So for the example that you see here, this is what we have in our HTML. Then in our CSS, which is for styling, you to basically say, H1, the color in H1 is going to be red. And for P, which means this P right here that you see right here, and the one I'm highlighting right now, the P, which is I'm highlighting that the paragraph is basically say, hey, the color of the paragraph, the color of the elements inside the paragraph are going to be red too. But now let's see this if we're using classes and look at how easier it is, right? So instead, for H1, right, basically have a class and our class name is red, and we say this is red, and then we have a paragraph just like we had in the example before, where our paragraph also has a class, and we also call that class that says, hey, this is red too. And then when we go to our CSS file, for us to reference to the class, we have to basically call the class name using a dot method. So if we say dot red, what the computer does, it actually understands that you are referring to the red class, and then every single thing will like auto-populate things that work along the lines of that. And then as we go even deeper, you understand that there are so many different color coordinations. So the more you start working on web development, working on website, you'll be having to use even a color code. Like there's a color code for white, there's a color code for red, there's a color code for milk red. And us being able to use the dot method actually makes our life very, very, very easy. Right, so let's look at the style with tags versus a style with the class, right? So if we're looking at the style with tags, you see with tags here, what we do is basically we look at, hey, H1, this is red, H2, the P basically says this is red too, and when you go to a CSS file, what we basically do is we are just referring to the H1 tag. Well, if we had an H1 tag followed by a number of list of tags, where we maybe wanted to make a list, it gets a little bit confusing. But classes actually are great in the sense that they really just able to just go in and zero in on what you're looking for. So in my experience of building website, I always use classes because classes make it very, very simple. And also as you branch out to other programming languages, like the object-oriented programming, and if you look at Java, you are also going to meet the exact same concept of classes. So now let's look at the syntax of the HTML. Right, so basically there is an opening, there's an opening quota mouth bracket, and there's a closing quota mouth bracket, and then there's another one on the end, but that one has a slash before it. So what that is basically that shows the beginning and the end. So in HTML, those are the tags that you use, and some of these tags, they all represent a particular thing. For example, if it's opening and then it is an L, I think it's LI, close, then open LI/LI, then that's gonna be like a list. So when you're trying to make a list, the A, the one with an H, you'll be making a heading. The P, you're making a paragraph. So this makes it even easier for you to read and look at it. And then also, if you look at the syntax in the CSS, basically whatever class you want, you refer it with the class name. And all classes are declared using the class keyword. That is the same in all programming languages, whether Java, whether Python, or even the HTML, you declare it with the class keyword. So here, dot class dash name, that's basically is the class name that you put in. So if we change class name and we wrote like Peter, right here we'll just say dot Peter. And then if you say dot Peter, what CSS does, especially if you're using an IDE, like an IDE is an integrated development environment, which is a place where we basically write our code on. So example, if you're using VS Code, so if you're using VS Code, which is an IDE that really allows you to write code in any language on it. So that's where usually I write most of my projects. When, for example, when I'm building a website, before I host it, I write all my code in VS Code. So what happens, and what I've noticed, is that when you say dot and you put the class name, it's going to really just pull up every single thing that you need, or the properties, or to ask you about the padding space, to ask you about the color, and it already comes to things that are auto-populate, so it becomes easier for you. You don't have to type every single thing in it. So yep, that's a mini lesson from me about classes. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll leave you your emails. I'll leave you with my email, and then you can reach out to me if you have any other question. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy.